Today is a very special day. Now this video, or technically the idea of this video, started about 4, maybe 5 years ago. You see, Adam Savage, who I'm sure you're probably familiar with, put out a video on Tested where he kitbashed, there you go, he kitbashed a mech using parts from a game called Giant Killer Robots. And if you're like me, one of the million and so people who have seen that video, you've probably always wished you had access to those exact parts. It's suddenly gotten very dark in here. If you don't know what GKR is, if you've never heard of it, they had a Kickstarter campaign, and one of the stretch goals was a bunch of unpainted copies of the mechs from the game. And I've acquired some through my own means. Now, a couple of things to note. It's not a complete set, but it is quite a few parts, probably more than I will know what to do with. Ever since I saw Adam Savage kitbash his own, I've always wanted to do something in the same way. And there's nothing really to stop me from just kit bashing a mech using recycling and other kit parts and so on. But there's something really satisfying for me about taking a bunch of parts that are supposed to fit a certain way and making them fit a different way. Now, I'm just really lucky that the pieces are already disassembled for me here, and I get to basically play Lego. So I think what we're gonna do is take inventory of what we have, do a little bit of knolling, look at all of our bits, and then from there, come up with a plan of what we want to make. The thing for me about kit bashing is I am a very precious model maker. And by that, what I mean is I'm always afraid to use parts. I always tell myself, no, this is the perfect bit for imaginary project in the future that I haven't done yet. I am notorious for this. I think a lot of people in the hobby can be, and that's why we tend to hoard things for as long as we do. When these came into my possession, I told myself I was never going to use them basically because it was too precious to waste. Look at these amazing pieces. What if I never get another opportunity like this again? That's just a dumb mentality to have, and so I need to work on that, and this project is going to be a really good way to kick my ass into it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm identifying things that look like arms or joints, things that look like legs, things that look like weapons to me, and then checking to see if I have pairs. Because if I have matching pairs, if I can make 2 arms, 2 legs, and so on, I can make something symmetrical. Once I identify what is a pair, that can live together. Anything that's not in a pair goes off to the side. Those become accent details. Or maybe I decide to go in an asymmetrical route, something that only has 1 arm, something that only has 1 leg, maybe it has 5 legs, I don't know yet. And so once I have everything organized in a way that's readable to me, in a way that I like, I can then form a plan based on the materials that I have. These are all my favorite bits out of all the bags, so it's time to go make a plan. So where I've landed is I'm obsessed with this piece that I found that gives me this sort of round head. I think it's a combination of the awe of the Seeker droid, of the Scout droid from Star Wars, from The Empire Strikes Back, but then also a little bit of Alpha from Power Rangers. So I think those two bits of nostalgia have taken over in my head. The problem is I really like the idea of it being a more Seeker Scout style droid with like two arms coming out of it, you know, like tentacles almost. But I also really want it to be a robot. I really want it to be a mech. And I think I know how to have my cake and eat it too, without taking a mold of the head, because we're trying to not be precious. So no molding, no casting. We're gonna kick things off with some green stuff so I can fill in all these holes on the top of our little droid head. Once that has a chance to set, I'll come back and scrape off any excess. But while it's still setting up, I'm going to push in the antenna that I want on the top of the head. This way it has its own little mating point and I can super glue it back into place later on. Now, using the ends of some feet from another mech, I'm just using a drop of super glue to hold them together for me so I can flip them around, put a little bit more glue and baking soda to fill in the gap. And then taking another miscellaneous piece, I'm just going to glue that to the top. This is going to form the neck and body of our Scout droid. Now I can bring out my brand new pin vise and drill some holes on either side of the body. These holes will allow me to place some wire, which is going to form the two arms of our Scout. One of the arms is going to allow it to interface with ships and computers and other pieces of technology. Think of R2-D2 being able to access any spaceship on the fly. The second arm is going to be a mechanical clamp hand, and this is just going to allow our droid to interact with the physical world and just pick up mundane objects, pull levers, things like that. I'm imagining this droid to be a vessel for a ship's AI to occupy and leave the ship at will, maybe even make some very simple repairs to the ship. I don't know, I'll keep fleshing out the idea. Using my go-to mixture of green stuff and milliput, I just build out the width of the arms until I'm happy with them. Bringing my pin vise back out again, I'm not only able to put this droid on a temporary base, but what's even cooler is I have some mini magnets that I'm going to use so the head is removable and it can go from the Scout body to the bigger mech that I also want to build. Real quick break in the video because it is worth mentioning. I wouldn't be able to do this particular project if it wasn't for the support of my wonderful patrons. It's because of them that I'm able to go out and pick up some much needed hobby supplies, things like milliput and green stuff, and my new pin vise, which is my new favorite tool of all time. And because of these lovely patrons, I think it's only fair that they get a little something back. Because I have so many of these GKR bits, I'm gonna put together a little grab bag and send it to one of my patrons at the end of this month. And I know not everyone's able to sign up for Patreon and give support that way. I totally get it. What you can do, however, is subscribe to the channel. If you're one of the lurkers who just watches and isn't subscribed, you could like the video, you could share it with a friend. These are all things that YouTube looks at. And for the moment, I do serve the algorithm. So if you could leave a comment down below, comments for the algorithm god, that would be greatly appreciated. One of the reasons I was so excited to use these GKR bits to build a mech is because they are covered in tiny little details. When you don't have to worry about adding every single tiny greeble onto your Kitbash, it really speeds up the build process. So now I'm basically just playing an elaborate game of Tetris, except I get to cut each of the blocks down to the shape that I want. I found a set of arms among all the bits that I really liked the length and width of, but I didn't really love the weapon that it was holding in its right arm. So I'm cutting that off just to get a look and feel of the arm without it, because I can always add another weapon back on in the future. And in doing this, I realized that I wanted some bigger, more detailed hands. So I'm borrowing them from another set of arms in the kit, and then surgically attaching those with some super glue and baking soda. I'm really just trying to put one drop of glue down each time I add something on. Adding too much glue or too much baking soda will create buildup, which will become more apparent in the painting process later on. And if I can avoid having to go back and scrape all that off, I'd like to. Now switching gears and looking at the back of our mech, I found a part that had a lightning bolt on it. So this is going to be our power unit. The only change I've made to it is I've glued on an end cap from a piece of IKEA furniture to cover up a hole. And that way I won't have to stuff it with green stuff later on. Once I've got that nicely flush with the back of our mech, I found a small weapon from one of the support units, which I'm treating as a small thruster pack. And with the tiniest amount of super glue and baking soda, I'm filling in the gap between the two. From here, I could spend some time drilling out some adjoining holes for a magnet so I could attach our head on. Not only is it so cool that I'll be able to remove the head and put it on the Scout or put it on the mech, it's also posable, which is something that you don't always get with miniatures. And it's just so cool, and I can't get over it. Now, with a little bit of wire conduit that I had in my bits bag, I am cutting back the amount that I need and using it to fill the belly or the midsection of our robot. Normally, I would use some green stuff and sculpt those cables in, but these are almost a perfect match with a little bit of finessing, and it's just going to be faster this way. Now, I'm going to sound a little spoiled here, but I didn't love the leg options for all my parts. So in a classic conjuredcraft throwback, we're taking another set of arms, turning them around and using them as the legs. Once the legs and feet were assembled, I attached the missing hand for our other arm, which happens to be holding a cartoonishly oversized weapon. I thought this would be a fun addition to the piece and give a much needed change in the overall silhouette. Finally, to add to that silhouette and to hide the unsightly joints of the arms and legs, I'm adding on some armor panels. My inspiration for this comes largely from samurai during the feudal era of Japan, and honestly, it just looks cool. Off camera, I added just a few details to our oversized weapon, including a bit of scrap for the battery pack, a few panels to beef up the profile of the gun, and finally, a length of zip tie to add some railing onto the top. Now, because of how amazing this mech has turned out, it only seems appropriate that it has a beautiful display base to go with it. So using one of the hex bases from the support units in my parts, I've filled in the gaps on it with some green stuff, drilled in a small hole for a pin, and once I've got that set exactly where I like it, I'm rolling out the last of my green stuff to add some decorative details to the top. Now, in a perfect world, I would much rather use something like styrene or some thin plastic, but since this green stuff was going to go off regardless, I figured let's just go ahead and sculpt that on. After removing a small length of our sculpting material, I'm coming back in with some of that conduit from before to fill in the gap and add some more detail. Then using my knife, I'm just sharpening up those edges along the base. And finally, coming back in with my sculpting tool to add in some little rivet-like details. And then we're done. Oh, look at this guy. How fucking cool is that? The best bit, the most satisfying bit is, put you next to the mic. Magnets, baby. It is so cool. I would like for these minis to eventually become part of a sci-fi warband, maybe something for Stargrave or Space Station Zero. Honestly, I could probably get it to work in just about any sci-fi setting. The little scout droid could quite easily be in Star Wars. The point is the sky's the limit with these, and I couldn't be prouder. There is a very giddy child part of me that is just overwhelmed with the fact that I finally got to do this. I don't usually make fan art, if you will, and I don't think this really qualifies as it, but I made it because of Adam Savage. He has been one of my heroes for as long as I can remember. It's just so cool. I feel really special to have been able to make these. I know you're waiting for the beauty shots, and so we'll get to those. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Please let me know what you thought in the comments or what you'd like to see me do with sci-fi in the future. As always, I hope you're doing well, I hope you're safe, and I hope you're making cool stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Oh, hey, what's up? Oh, painting it. No, we're not going to paint it today. Well, it's a Kitbash like Adam Savage video, so, you know, he never finishes builds in a day, so you'll just kind of have to come back another time. Sorry. Oh, okay. You probably always wished you had These are all my favorite. What am I doing? Yeah, what the f is going on over here? Stay over here. Yeah. No, come back.